What is going on, chat? How's everyone doing tonight? DNA Racing tuning in from work. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Solid, how you doing? Signed into the wrong account. No worries. Siberia. Hey, Rorka, what is up? McLovin, how you doing? I'm doing pretty well. Good to see you all tonight. I am super excited for tonight and tonight's show. A lot of fun things to talk about. Um, the first one being I reached 1,000 followers on Twitter, and as a thank you, put up this poll for either free horse giveaway, one-on-one coaching evaluations, or a floor stud fee to one of you. What's up, Sean? And it was a very clear winner of a horse giveaway. I am currently working on that now. That should be up, I would hope within the next 7 to 10 days. Thank you, Solid for Life. I appreciate it. I'm waiting to find a breed that I'd be happy with to give you guys. I want it to be something that has something exciting about it so I can get excited with you. So stay tuned on that. Hopefully, I'm hoping within the next 7 to 10 days, ideally next Thursday's show, I will have a horse for the giveaway. I will have details on Twitter. The actual drawing itself will probably be happening on my Twitch stream, hopefully next Thursday, if not the Thursday after. Yo, Gutters! Dork Love Sports! What's up? Alright, so just wanted to start with that for you all. Thank you for all the following, all the support. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot. So the first thing I want to talk about right now, kind of shifting gears into news, is the updates that have happened recently. Not necessarily super new news, but happened a few days ago. Some updates and changes to Zed and how we are going to experience the platform. So the first one being fatigue. So just reading here, it says fatigue is coming. Fatigue is an attribute that exists currently within all racehorses. That's why they were able to apply it back to the history of all of the horses, and that's why we're getting so much data around it now. Has not been activated now. That is currently activated. So, and they say that each time, so fatigue is established each time you place your horse into a race within a 24-hour period, which I'm believed to be a rolling 24-hour period, its maximum potential speed will decrease. So that's not necessarily going to say it's guaranteed to run slower if you go from 100 to 98%, but that it has a chance to run slower as fatigue starts to set in and go down. I've heard that I haven't seen anything official on this. I've heard it from multiple sources though that once you get to 30% fatigue, that the horse will not lose points and that you can't force a down class by just getting your horse super fatigued. So something to be wary of, something to be watchful for. I know we don't have a lot of races right now, but when that comes, something definitely to consider. Hey Stealth, how you doing? Lucky, what's going on? Completely stopped working. Didn't even think of that down button. Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't look like we'd be able to manipulate fatigue as a down button, thankfully. Now, maybe you could a little bit or give yourself a slight edge if you did that maybe around 50% fatigue at a non-preferred distance. We'll talk a little bit more about distances a little later in the show, but I'm not super concerned with fatigue. And I just kind of wanted to let you all into how I'm addressing and looking at fatigue. Whoa! Gianfranco79, hello from Australia. How you doing? So fatigue is here. Not something I'm super concerned about yet, but here's how I address it and here's how I'm working with fatigue. So first, I get a lot of questions about like how can I identify fatigue within my horse? It's kind of complicated, but kind of simple way to do that. The easiest way is to go to your horse page, and I believe this will only work for your own stable when you are logged in. I've tried to look at other horses that have just run races just to get like comparison or see some information. Haven't seen it. But yeah, so the easiest way to do that is to right click on the meter itself that you see. So this one's full. This is the 3 lines horse I just bred. It's a Z20 Elite. One race, no fire, but it was a 2400, so I'm not super concerned about it yet. Named the 3 lines because the color is English vermilion. I thought it was fitting. So all you have to do is right click, and it's not going to show up here because I'm not sharing that, but if you right click on the meter itself and you go to inspect element, you're going to see the HTML of a page. And within that, and I'll zoom in here, you're eventually going to see different parts of the DOM, and you're looking for something, and just keep hovering over that bar and right clicking, and it'll be kind of highlighted on your screen. But what you're looking for is here's the fatigue badge, here's the horse container, here's the fatigue meter, and this happens to say full, full. But the real thing that's important, if you want to see how much your horse has fatigued, is to look at this rectangle right here within this view box. And you want to pull this number right here that has the green above and below at 100. So that could be 100, that could be 98, it could be 93, it could be lower. It's not super fast, it's not super convenient, but a way for you to get your fatigue. Yes, Stealth 1, they have set it up that way. Quest, how you doing? Zed Retro, what is up? Midnight Black Horse today, Lucky, named it Martin Lawrence. G7, what is up? So it's a way, it's not the easiest, it's not the fastest, but it's a way for you, if you want to see your fatigue, how you can pull it up. So then once I take that, what I'm doing with that is I'm taking that and putting it into an Excel. Here's a Google Sheet. But I'm tracking the horse name, the horse's race date, the horse's race time. These were approximations. And I've only done it with 2 because I was only able to get in 2 paid races. The pre-fatigue value, so both were at 100%. The distance, the finish time, then the speed in kilometers per hour. And I know roughly that this speed, and I didn't perform well. This was a down button for Gold War at 1,000 meters. I don't want him to think that I'm maybe trash talking him. I wasn't expecting much out of him here. I know he can get a little angry. The post-fatigue value, so after the race, I was down to 93%. After this race, I was down to 97%. Was there a flame in that race? The estimated replenishment time, so I didn't get it exactly to the minute or to the second, but looking at what time was I back at 100. And so what I'm doing with this before we get into the calculations is I want to see, okay, so here's kind of my date range. Here's my time range. I have my race time as well as my replenishment time. And I'm using those as like within that 24-hour window period, how much am I going down and how much am I going up? As well as distance, because I wanted to see, hey, does distance cause my horse to fatigue more? And it doesn't appear that way in this anecdotal 2-horse example, because here's a distance of 1,000, distance of 2,000. One was run faster than the other, and the distance, the 1,000-meter distance, had more fatigue, though it was run faster, slightly, than the longer distance. So I don't think distance has an effect on fatigue. I know this is just 2 races, and I'd want to see a lot more. And I think each horse is very, very different, so keep that in mind as well. I also want to see if flames maybe affect it. You know, if it's a preferred distance to my horse, is my horse going to get a bonus potentially for that and be fatigued less? Maybe incentivizing in a way, once you can figure out how to best race your horses and get a bonus for racing your horse correctly. So then I'm looking at the estimated replenishment time, and then from that I'm calculating, and this is a manual calculation I did, of what was that time gap in hours. So it was 23.4667 hours approximately. And then I'm able to calculate a recovery per hour. And that's a number I want to compare to across like all my horses and all my distances, is that recovery rate per hour, because I think that's going to be the most valuable metric going forward. Do all horses recover at the same rate? Do they cover at different rates? Not totally sure. So something to consider, something to think about, but I feel I'm tracking a fairly comprehensive set of numbers here, and will definitely be sharing this out with you as I continue to race and go forward. I don't know about pacers being more resistant to fatigue, though the name, maybe something to that name, may imply that. Dork Love Sports asks, or says, the Zed school guys suggested possibilities that pacers could be more resistant to fatigue. The name may imply that. Gold War is an elite, and I think Bar Dice is a exclusive. We can check the account here. We'll check out what bar dice is. Just to see if like one gets fatigued slower than the other. I think that's a really good point to look at the breed type and to see how that could affect things as well. I don't believe racing is working. It could be. We can check in a minute. So bar dice is an exclusive, and Gold War is an elite. We'll just pop over quick and check this out. Just checking up on chat quick. Finney Legendary ran 2 times at 1600 back-to-back freebies and reduced him to 56%. Wow. I've heard really small decreases. I've heard of really big decreases as well. Free races set to only allow to run 2 or 3 races a day. Regen rate was 5. I'm assuming that's 5% over 3 hours. 5% net dollars. Yep. Quest says basically functioning like the time staggering that they've had, so you can only run 3 to 4 a day. Yeah, I don't know how many races theoretically you'd be able to run per day with fatigue, and I think that's very dependent on the horse. You know, it's one thing to track the fatigue, but then to also track the degradation of performance with that fatigue. Because as certain horses might be able to get a little lower and still run better, potentially, within kind of that range of its potential, if that makes sense. So definitely check it out. Something I'm keeping an eye on, something I will continue to share with you. I sent out a group of tweets a few days ago. And yeah, I will keep you posted as I continue to find new information out. Solid for Life says, checked it, 94. Yes, that is 94% fatigue, Solid for Life. You are exactly right there. So it doesn't look like we've got anything with racing at the moment. You might be able to get 1 or 2 in quick. But yeah, I wanted to talk about fatigue, how to find it, a tracker. So the next thing I want to talk about is fire. And so what is fire and what does that mean? Some people call it flame, some people call it fire. I'm just calling it fire or flame symbols. Basically, what fire is the, and the wording's very important. The flames will sit next to the top 3 most likely racers that are considered to place in position 1, 2, or 3. Now, from my perspective, in my opinion, odds brought us a little too close and accelerated our horse discovery a little too fast. And fire now kind of allow us to still have an element of discovery, but at a much slower and more expensive, arguably, rate. And so I don't think, though, you can make the comparison that flames or fire are the new odds. They are very, very different. They're showing different things. And remember, it is a likelihood, nothing more. I see people asking for a clear answer and looking for clear answers to it's black or it's white, and it's really not. Much like odds were, it was gray. Odds could give us a pretty good indicator of how well a horse would perform, but it wasn't necessarily always spot on. I think you're going to get the same thing with fire, but at a much wider range of performance within the fire spectrum versus odds. So one question that I have is what fire isn't? So this very clearly says position 1, 2, or 3. If I have a horse in position that finishes most likely in position 2, 3, and 4, if you cut that 1 out, replace it with the 4, am I more likely to not get a flame but still be successful? And I think that's something to understand. I don't know if it's true or not yet. I'm seeing horses that are definitely back that theory, and I'm seeing horses that aren't. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't a thing at all. But I think that's something to consider, that when you're looking to evaluate a horse or to buy a horse, don't necessarily base it on fire. I still think for the sake of looking for value buys, for looking at good, consistent racers, you need to take your analysis a step further. So please do not put all of your eggs in the fire basket. And, so just kind of speaking to that volatility. Here, for example, on Haku is Gold War. And you can see that Gold War has an average fire of 85.6. 7 free races, 104 paid races, with a win rate of 17.3. So that's a solid win rate with a solid fire rate. In some way, that kind of makes sense. If we go to another horse here, Jason Tatum, these horses were pulled from a tweet that I did asking for people to submit their horses. We see this horse has a 10% win rate Over 1,000 races. Average cost of 3.9, but a fire rate of only 5.5%, which if you look at fire very literally, that doesn't make sense. And I think this proves that you have to take it with a grain of salt, look at it at a wider angle. Fire could be a potential indicator, one that isn't as strong as odds. Could be useful, but it isn't the end all be all when evaluating a horse. Circling back to chat here, I think that's right from what MJ showed. Yes, that is right. Cocky for life. Thank you for helping out. Solid for life. Beam says odds in real racing is done available before they race, although real betting can change opening odds on a horse. Absolutely. Zed Retro says fire is going to be really hard to determine a horse's value. I can't imagine they won't bring back something that is like odds. Absolutely, but I think I found a way to potentially look at the way fire can be useful to you to identify like super, super great horses very easily. That's not to say if you don't have this attribute, you won't be a super great horse, but it's something that could help. Zook, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Odds are based on horse's performance, good distance preference. What up, JD43? How you doing? So Jason Tatum here, circling back to the evaluation, the analysis. Horrible fire, great win rate. And you can see right here, fire really only happened in Class 5. And you can see it happened at a handful of distances. But the average race is 3.9, which would probably explain why it's not getting fired, because it's racing out of its fire zone. But it's not necessarily indicative of performance. Next horse we're looking at is a bull market. 28 races, so not a whole lot. Racing mostly in Class 5, showing signs of a strong outside U with 5 races in first and 10 races in 12th. 17.9% win rate with 1 free race in there. Average fire of 0. Like, this horse could be good, could be worthwhile. But the average fire rate is 0. ZNFT, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it and welcome. Last horse I want to kind of look at for this is PCP. Average fire of 52.4%. Average race class of 3.5, 42 races, 1 free, 0 win rate. But that being said, you have a high second and third. And if you look at it's pretty strong in 10 and 1,000, mostly in 5th, some in 4th, some in 3rd. And you can see it is still pulling at these odds. So fire is very volatile. I think that's a joke, kind of a joke. Maybe. It can be wild. Wildfire. I like that better. It's not necessarily indicative of performance. Keep that in mind. It can be something to aid in your evaluation, but please don't let that be the end-all be-all. I think it could mislead a lot of people. I saw someone bring up on Twitter, what happens if you have a horse that has 40 races with no wins and no fire? Will anyone want it? My answer to that is it depends. It depends on the breed, it depends on the blood, it depends on if it has offspring. Does it have offspring that are performing better, at least performing better than it, which I don't think would be too hard to do. So it's not a huge ask. But there could be value. Yes, that won't bring as much ETH in as a horse that's a great racer, but it's not a completely trash horse necessarily, in my opinion. Peach Plump, I think we disproved that a little bit. Yeah, maybe on average that may be correct, and we're going to take a look at that in a minute. Peach Plump says, low fire rates are never winning horses so far. That's high fire can be indicative of good performance, but it's not necessarily needed, as we looked at Jason Tatum with 5% fire, 10% win rate, and It's a Bull Market, 17.9 win rate over 28 races. Something to consider and something to look at. Just circling back to chat here, and we'll get to something kind of exciting. Lilcap Travis says, I have found the flames are misleading in terms of what the preferred distance is of my racers. I can't get flames in 1,000, 25% win rate, but I get flames in every distance with sub 10% win rate. So Lilcap Travis brings another good point. I've seen that too across many horses. It can be an indicator, it cannot be an indicator, but what I love Lilcap Travis is doing is that they are taking the information a step further. They're digging a little deeper to look at the actual performance, the actual finish. Awesome job, Lilcap Travis. Keep racing. Hope it's going well for you. ZNFT says, hello, MJ. Finally caught a stream. I've been wanting to watch, but pretty busy. Welcome, welcome. Happy you're here. Just catching up, just catching up. Jason Tatum has no profit though, and there could be a lot of reasons for that. Punch plump. A lot of reasons for that. Could be raced at really high dollar values, and maybe some was raced at not low or lower dollar values. Could be raced up, could be raced down. There are a lot of factors that isn't necessarily indicative of Flames, but it has performance. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that Flames are not necessarily tied to performance. JT43 says, my horse is legit scared of fire. Every time he gets to fire race, he underperforms massively. Lucky Charms here. Oh, thank you. You are here. Good, good, good. As the owner of Jason Tatum, I did run him in profit. The owner before did not. So yes, taking advantage of mismanagement. Peach Punch Plump. And that's something to always consider when evaluating or buying horses is how has it been raced before. Only like 4%, but hey, that's something. Absolutely, absolutely, Zed, absolutely. So there's a lot of factors. I love the conversation that's going on in chat right now. There are a lot of factors that can influence fire in one way or another. And I think that's important, more so than the fire, is that instead of focusing on the fire, we start to focus more on those factors. So, for example, Lucky finding a way to run his horse more profitably, identifying if a down button has been used. I think that's critical to evaluating a horse more so than fire. So to kind of put some data behind it, and we're going to be looking at averages here. Thank you, Veggie Dave. Appreciate it. Appreciate Golden Glow. What is up? Golden Glow in the building. Golden Glow, for those of you that don't know, ooh, I like that, is my partner on the Zed News Network. We have our stream Sunday nights where we interview some big names in Zed, talk about their experience so far, how it's going from them, get some insight on some of their strengths within Zed, and also learn more about their play style. So check us out Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Central, I believe. Golden Glow, correct me if I'm wrong. I always get our timings mixed up. So what we're looking at here is, and I'll zoom in a bit so we can see this, but this is the average fire by distance, and it excludes Griffey, so class 1 through 5. And so what we're looking at here, at the top, you have your distance breakdowns, and I'll continue to zoom in more. And then here's the places. So each one of these bars is a place. And what I found interesting from this is, first of all, just zooming out, you can see there is some relative consistency going across of the shape of the fire followers. Oh, hold on. We got a spammer in chat. Not about that life. All right. And they are banned. Racing user, okay, just got second. Nice, G7. Congratulations on second place. So what we're seeing here is fairly similar-ish patterns across distances at fire rate. So the bar here is the average fire percent, going from 16% down here up to 50% up top, about 55-ish, even higher. So if we actually zoom in on this a little more, you can see there's big drop from first to second to third to fourth. And then we have a 6th through 9th, 6th through 10th going across kind of lull of at its lowest points. And I think that's something to really consider, that we're looking at about 18 to 20% fire CNPV finishing here on average, if your horse averages that. But if you have a close to 50% fire, you're going to have a more likelihood to finish first. But notice how much like with odds, the odds graphs that we'd look at per distance, the fire graphs also circle back up. So you kind of, again, get a softer, less defined U. And something to be wary of. So if you're like in the 1820, here the 24 range, look at this 1400. These are almost identical going across. Almost identical. So fire, looking at averages, fire can be an indicator. I think it's very interesting that it's another U. What up, Sean? How you doing? Sean and I have a show Monday nights, 0 to Hero, at 10 p.m. Central. We take a horse, try and optimize it for performance, for value, for wins, for ROI, for show rate. Sean in the building. If you watch Sean's stream, he and his partner Tommy Tumteasy have something called Zed Bets. It allows you to bet on Zed races. Doesn't cost you a thing, and you can win horses, even NFTs. I think he's giving out Yeezys this week. So if you follow Sean, can you please throw some horns in chat for me? Show some respect for Sean coming into the stream. Where can I look at this graph? JD43, it's a picture right now saved on my hard drive. I can share it later on Twitter. I have no problem. Or shoot me a DM if I don't. I'll more than happily share this with anyone that asks for it or would like to see it. I love the horns in chat. McLovin in the building. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's, yeah, Lucky, there we go. All the big Sean fans in here. Check him out. Zed Bets tonight coming in at, I believe, 9 p.m. Central. So yeah, very interesting. You're getting similar shapes. It's a lesser defined, almost like softer U as odds. Odds were very kind of more clear, more distinct. The shapes are a little off. They're a little more lopsided towards position 1, 2, 3, which would make sense if they're the likelihood to finish first through third. But something to keep in mind. So we're peaking between like 48 and 50% fire rate seems to favor first place on average. That isn't necessarily indicative of performance, won't guarantee performance, but just looking at it from an average standpoint, here's kind of what you get. So next topic, yeah, I will definitely shoot me a message. I will try and tweet it out later. If not, shoot me or forget, shoot me a message. I will definitely give it to you. It's not a big deal at all. Next thing I want to talk about is breeding and breeding strategy. So breeding prices, as we know, have gone up lately, and it's making things a lot harder and a lot harder to acquire certain breeds that we may have liked post the breeding update. So I've talked about my breeding strategy in the past. I've tweaked it a little bit to be what I think is a little faster, at least to produce higher quality, and I just wanted to run you through this process in hopes that it could help you. This is basically the process I use for Gold War. This is the process I use for Bar Dice. I've used it for now the 3 Lions. Not to say that those other 2 horses at the end are necessarily proven. Bar Dice, I think, is doing pretty well, at least to start. Around 10 odds in 1 or 2 races and 2 or 3 flames. English, the 3 Lions, only has 1 race. Griffey, no fire. That is okay. It was at 2,400, not super worried. But anyways, here's my process. So I use Zedrun tools. The first thing I do is set a budget. So if you don't know, you can go to knowyourhorses.com. A lot of great features on the site. I will link it in chat. And you can get all of the breeding prices. So identify your budget and what you're looking at to spend. To give you an idea, a Genesis Nakamoto is 0.135 ETH. And that's $413. A Pacer Buterin is 0.018. And that is $55. So that's kind of your range that you're working with. So first thing I would do would be to set a budget for yourself. Then what I do is I take the filters on the left here and first filter by bloodline. So what is the most expensive bloodline I could afford? Maybe it's Zabo. Then I'm going to go to type, and I maybe start at Genesis. I would then flip this to show horses that are only in stud. I'm going to leave genotype for now because I'm looking at only Zabo Genesis, so that's already going to be pretty limiting for me. ETH, I haven't had much luck with this filter, so I usually leave that alone too. Minimum races, I bump that up to 20, just to add some more of a proven racer to it. And yes, I know not all racers make great offspring, but what I'm looking for here, and the whole purpose of this exercise, is to try and find racers that are, try and find proven racers that also produce good offspring. So number of races, I'm going to set that to 20. And then my win rate here, it was at 12. I'm going to bump it up. If you bump it up too high, let's say 43%, you're going to get weird, like not raced horses. If you see that come up on Zedrun tools, that just means your filters are a little too tight, so loosen that up. So I'm going to drop that down to 12. And I see, so I'm starting to look here. So now I look at these columns here, and here you see the career total races, first, second, third finishes, win rate, place rate, best distance. So what I'm looking for here is a good win rate, so 14.8%, place rate of 33 1/3, and its speed. So it ran at 16.81. I know that's fast. I know that's not super fast, but that's pretty fast. So the horse is always lucky. I'm going to go ahead and check it out. And so what I clicked on was lineage there. And this is a Genesis horse. So if it wasn't a Genesis horse, I would first click on parents, but I'm going to click on children. And what I'm looking for here first are the odds of the horses below. And odds, as we know, the O word that we can't say because it's going away, odds will become less valuable over time. I still think we're so fresh off of losing odds that they still hold some value. So I'm going to look at odds going down. I see 12, 10, 10, 15, 10, 15, 9. I'm seeing some pretty good odds here. We look at win rate, performance. Where are they racing? Class 3, Class 1, Class 2, Class 2. So 15 odds at Class 2 might not be bad at Class 4 or Class 5. I'm seeing a lot of potential here. So then I try and match up, what am I breeding this horse with? Is there something similar, both in genetic makeup, breed in blood, but also from the standpoint of Z number as well. So let's say hypothetically I had a horse that would be similar to Lucky Star. So I'm going to pull the offspring into ZRun Tools, and then I'm going to hit Parents. And I want to look at the other parent, and how does that parent compare to what I would be breeding with? So I see this horse also is not Genesis, so it would have parents as well. So I'm going to continue going all the way up the chain. Once I reach the top of that lineage, I'm going to start to work my way down. And here are the things that I'm looking for. I'm looking at the class the horse is racing in. I'm looking at the number of races, the win rate, and the odds number. And if those can stay consistent throughout, I feel not only do I have a quality horse, but I have from a racing standpoint, but also from a breeding standpoint. So I see this is a 7% winner. This is an 18% winner. Both racing in Class 1, sub 10 odds. Here's a Class 1 12% winner over a lot of races, sub 10 odds. And we already know Always Lucky fit our criteria. So I may consider, especially if my horse has a similar genetic makeup and genotype to Aurora Star right here, I may consider a breed. But I also know that Always Lucky produces a handful of quality offspring. So that to me is a better indicator. There's no great way of saying, yes, this is a guaranteed winner. I've cracked it, figured it out. No, there's still a lot of learning. There is still a lot of understanding things we need to figure out around breeding. But to me, I want to try and put myself in the best possible position. And by finding not horses, but unicorns that have great racing lineage, racing at a high class, and are producing good offspring, especially at the time in which I'm coming in to that lineage, I think is a recipe to potentially increase the chance of success. Taking a second to catch up on chat. Let me know if you have any questions on that strategy. Again, nothing is guaranteed, but it is just a strategy that I'm currently using. Cocky for Life says, would you have different advice for someone looking to start a stable today after all the recent updates? Most beginner videos are kind of old, and I've been learning about Zed for a few weeks as I've never bought crypto or an NFT. Wanted to understand what I'm getting into first. Great question, Cocky. I think really taking the time to, one, go through the documentation on Zed.run, the community, the getting started guide. So start there. Make sure you understand all the different breeding combinations. How if you breed an exclusive with a Genesis, there's a chance it could stay exclusive. I believe the same thing could happen at Elite. So Marvivo, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. So keep that in mind. Start with that. Keep that stuff in mind as you're looking to evaluate horses. Then I would say don't just look at odds. Don't just look at win rate, although win rate might be the strongest of kind of the few vanity metrics. And don't just look at fire, but look at the horse holistically. And we'll go over some of my tools later, and I think that's why I personally like my tools, is because they give you a great holistic look at how the horse is actually performing. Things to watch out for: odds and fire rate not matching up, win rate being influenced by free races. When was it last raced? Was it 6 months ago? Was it 2 days ago? How is it performing against the current field? What class is it in? Has it always been racing in that class? Can you identify a preferred distance for that horse? Those are all things I would ask myself, and I do ask myself when I'm looking to evaluate and looking to buy a horse. So first, set a budget. Then identify your goals, and then really start digging into the data. That's what I would recommend. Cocky for Life. Solid for Life says, just ran my Buterin Legendary Philly 1,000 meters. Fatigue dropped from 94 to 89. Did pick up third place, though, with no flame. Congrats, Solid for Life. Ed J, thank you for the subscription over on YouTube. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Are the speed stats on sites always based on final time? So, Pete Punch Plump, one thing, great question. The speed stats vary depending on what site you use. If you use mine and you look at Eric Wong's articles, he talks about in kilometers per hour. If you look at ZRun Tools, they talk about meters per second. If you look at Know Your Horses, they do finish time. Neither one is wrong, neither one is incorrect, neither one is better than the other. They're just different, and be sure to keep that information in mind. Lucky Charm says, I have 2 horses that are distant relatives of Scruffy. Nice! Which ones are they? How are they performing? Win rate under hundreds of races is a terrible indicator. It can be Punch Plump. Sure, obviously the more races, the better. Absolutely. But it's not necessarily indicative, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. You have to look at other pieces. If that's the only piece that you're looking at, and that is telling you this horse is successful, it may not be the best indicator. But if you have other pieces that are lining up with this horse, and it has under 100 races, I think you can definitely identify solid performance from there. Loco, for real, we'll definitely get to horse reviews at the end of this show. So that's kind of circling back how I approach breeding, how I think about breeding. The next topic I want to talk about, and this is huge, is an update to Z-Alytics. So, and we'll see if we can zoom in a little bit more. So, recently updated, built this up, rebuilt it completely from scratch, removed a bunch of bloat, so it should load and perform a little faster, both in the initial load, yeah, look at this, and also when you're filtering. For those of you that are newer, maybe aren't as familiar with this tool, I wanted to kind of walk you through all of it step by step and break down kind of the importance of it all and where you can find certain things. So using my horse Gold War as an example, type in a name, hit enter, click on the name that appears in the dropdown, and all this information will update. From there, you can select things like your race type, free or paid. The class filter was always there, but it was a drop-down. Now it's a slider, which I think is a lot smoother of an experience. So right now I'm only be looking through classes 2 through 5. Instead of having to like check off certain things and it not loading, you can do it a lot faster. If you just want one class, you just bring the 2 sides together. For example, to only look at class 2. And then the last filter we have over here is your race date. It will not update with everything. All you have to do is just drag it over, much like the class filter, to do things like track performance over time. You know, it's brought up earlier that a horse, Jason Tatum, wasn't profitable. But then a new owner comes in, makes it profitable. So if you want to track your ROI, your performance pre and post, that's definitely something you can do using that date slider. So expanding it back out to all races, some new columns were added here. So the first one being average class. And with average class, you can now see the kind of the value or the benefit of that. Thank you, Just Rock. Appreciate it. The value of the average class is you can see, okay, is one of these a lot higher than the other ones? Is one of these a lot lower? Thank you for following Robo Reagan. Appreciate it. And can give you an idea of, okay, if this horse is, if I'm looking to buy a horse, I'm on Haku, I'm on Know Your Horses. I see this horse races in class 4 currently. And I see up here, well, its average class is 2.81, which would really be closer to 3. And it's racing really well. It's currently in class 4. Man, this could be a great opportunity in class 3. Vice versa, I'm in class 2 and it's performing really well at one distance, but that distance has only been really raced at class 4. That could be a little misleading. And so with the average class here, it just allows you to focus a little more to look at where within the class system have these distances been primarily run. So then we have the number of races run, your average place. Fire rate was also added by distance. Average odds, again, being less important as time goes on, but we'll keep them there if they exist for a horse. Your average fee, much like classes, is wildly important. So is an average fee at one distance higher than others? That can be a sign of mismanagement by your previous owner, or maybe just an opportunity that you're missing, just not thinking entering in races. Maybe you only really need to race at $2.50 races. Maybe you're having success racing at higher dollar races. Looking at your average fee per race is hugely important to really dial in and get the most out of your horse to hopefully try and improve this next column right here, which is your profit. So here at the bottom, you get everything kind of summed up, but now you can see at distances. So what distances are profitable? What distances are not profitable? What does that look like? How's my performance then at those profitable distances, at those non-profitable distances? Am I not profitable because I'm racing in the wrong class and have too high of an entry fee? Or am I not profitable simply because it's not a good distance for me? Sean3 Twitch says, how often does it update? It's about 24 to 48 hours. You can expect an update after stream tonight from today's data. It's been a little slower, especially with races not being populated in. Positive Sean says, MJ Stables, I have a horse with a terrible fire rate, but decent win rate at 1,600. Only 30 races. If you're interested, take a look. Definitely take a look at that later. That is awesome. Fire is a good short-term indicator. Could be. It absolutely could be. It absolutely could be. The Realist, thank you for following. I appreciate it. Lots of new followers tonight. All of you that are new, welcome, welcome, welcome. I appreciate having you here. So after profit, then we have win rate. So wildly important, not only looking at overall win rate, but win rate by distance. And this is my favorite part of Zetalytics, is your finish distribution. So you have first through third, 4 through 8, and 9 through 12. And for those of you that are looking to access it, I will throw the link in chat right there. Reason why this is important, I get a lot of people say, hey, I have a 9% win rate, but I'm not performing very well. I'm not profitable. Or I think I'm running on its preferred distance, but I'm not profitable. A lot of times the reason for that would be you may have some success in the 1 through 3, but your 4 through 8 column makes up the majority of the percentage. Sorry, a little refresh there. Majority of the percentage of your finishes, and that's going to drastically negatively impact your ROI and your performance, and can really help you dial in to figure out maybe this isn't as preferred as I thought, or maybe I should hold off on this horse for breeding. Also 9 through 12, good for identifying potential down buttons leading to the next column, which is your average points. These points go into your class. So the more points you get, the higher classes you move up into. Why it's important to track your points is if you'll notice things with fire rate, with odds, as you move up in class, it can be harder to get that fire. It can be harder to get those good odds, once were odds. And so it's important to balance your class. And Rayburn, thank you. Appreciate the follow. Welcome. And so right here, hypothetically, this isn't a great example because I only have 1 to 4 races here. But I see a potential up button being 2,000 meters at 1.42 points. So I know if I'm ready to move up in class, I may want to avoid 2,000 for a little bit. And instead, I would look at some of these negative numbers for down buttons to bring me down in points to allow me to win and also maintain my class. So if I'm not a natural U, this could be a way to form and make a synthetic U, meaning a horse that finishes in the front a lot and finishes in the back a lot. If anything, could help potentially give you an edge. Next column is kilometers per hour. Then this versus Z looks at all of the horses in the Z ecosystem. It doesn't adjust. It's always looking at that. So you can see is your horse running faster or slower on average. And the next column is standard deviation. And this will be different than know your horse's standard deviation because we're looking at kilometers per hour, not finish time. So if you see the numbers different, that would explain why. Neither one is wrong or incorrect. It's just a different way of looking at it. And then again, the difference for Z. This number at the end is a distance guide. This isn't necessarily your preferred distance. It's not always necessarily the distance where you have the most races, but it looks at things like speed, like performance, like the distribution of finishes, and comes up with a number off of that to guide and to influence your decision. So the way that I use my tool and why I think my tool is great is because Zetalytics was built for a world without odds and for a world where there was no replacement for odds. you don't need odds to be successful, because this is what takes your racing to the next level by going deeper. So how I use this, starting off, if I'm looking to evaluate a horse, I start on the right, I look at the distance guide. I'm looking for drop-off. 38, pretty big drop-off to 14, pretty big drop-off to 9, huge drop-off to 0.16. Now, different horses are going to have different numbers. If your top number is 7, that's not a bad thing. It's just you need a few more races. It needs more information to kind of populate and bring up that number. So I've started here. I've identified these top 3. I'm going to go over here now at the left, see, okay, where am I racing? I know I just dropped down into Class 2, so these could be some okay places to race. 2200 might not be great at Class 2 because my average is 3.16. I see pretty good average place, pretty high fire, 65 to 96%. I'm profitable at all these distances. I've got a win rate, 27%, 9%, 15%. First through third, 53, 31, 42. Yes, those are great distances. I'm going to continue to run those. This is fantastic. Circling back to chat here. Zed Retro says, fire specs feel all over the board right now. Like anything, we're going to need a lot of data over time to determine validity. Absolutely, Zed Retro. It's so new and so fresh, and that's why I say dig a little deeper, take a step further from it all. Cheat to win, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. MJ Stables, do you anticipate tracking stats of racing while fatigued, or is it a smart move to be fully rested before entering? I believe you can still race while fatigued. That number of where, I'm not quite sure yet. And I don't know if I'll be tracking it in Zetalytics. Maybe. I may come up with something else. But I'm starting off, much like I started off with Zetalytics, and just doing like a small personal in-stable tracking, going to bring that to you because I think it's really hard. I don't know if you can track fatigue outside of your own stable. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But everything I uncover, everything I discover along my journey, I will be sharing with all of you, absolutely, whether through Twitter or on stream. Ryman, get out of here with that. Come on now. Zed is not dead. Absolutely not dead. Zed is not going anywhere. A lot of these issues, I believe, are tied to Polygon, not necessarily tied to Zed. I know you're kidding. I know you're kidding. Yep, Zed is up. I'm still incredibly bullish on Zed. All in. Love Zed, and I think Zed has a very bright future in front of itself. Gags30, thank you for the follow. And Zed Racing Miami, thank you for the follow. Welcome. A lot of new people in here tonight. Thank you for joining in. So we've gone over kind of this top part of Zetalytics. Now, this is the part that, one of the 2 parts I'm most excited about with this update. Here is these charts right here. The red, I had these in before, is red and blue. So you had kind of a red ball, and then a blue bar going across. And that blue bar was your slowest time to your fastest time and everything filled in between. That red ball was the average Zed speed. And with last night's update, you're going to see it's the exact same thing. It's a little smaller. I did work out that Easter egg. We can talk about that later if you want. With this update, not only are you seeing that same information, but now you're going to see the density along with that. So going back to the example with Gold War of 24, 22, and 1,000, looking at 2,400 meters, and we can select just these few distances, so it might be a little more clear and easier to see. I don't know if it'll expand on me. At least we can isolate it up top. We're going to start here at 24, and you can see, so start at the red ball, and then you want to look for the density or the darkest blues around that red. So there's a little spot here that's not quite on it, but a little further back. And then there's a pretty good density in front of the red ball. And on top of that, it goes out pretty far past the red ball. So to me, that says on average, I'm running significantly faster than all of Zed, and I might perform better. So how does this translate up top? So up top, it says I have a almost 28% win rate. I'm in first through third 53.5% of the time. So I know, and it's further back here, looking at kind of my race speed distribution, that I'm racing well. Now let's look at 2200. There's a spot of blue out here, but then there's also a significant piece of darker blue back here as well. And when we bring up 2200 up here, we can see I've got a pretty good win rate, 9.38%. But if you look across, I have a 31% first through third, which is not bad at all. But then a 28% in the middle, which makes sense if that's dark, super close to the ball here, and a 40% in 9 through 12, again, with the majority of the darker blue being behind the ball. Looking at 2000, it's a much smaller distribution, but again, we have some darker color in front of the ball. And win rate, 15.38%, first through third, 42. In the middle, 50, which makes sense. It's a smaller distribution, and it's fairly close to the ball, but it's in front of it. And then 9 through 12, which is fairly light and doesn't extend out as far as the front, is the lowest of the three distributions. So something to consider and to think about is to look at the density. So not only are we seeing just the length of that anymore, but we are also seeing the density of it. So look at how dark your blue is. If we look at 1,000 here, just as another example, not many races, but they're all behind the red ball, and it's pretty light. So 4 races, and I say I can run that here, 0.85 kilometers per hour slower than all of Z. Makes sense, matches up. Density isn't great behind the red ball. Questions on these density graphs. I think this is really huge. I think this will be a great upgrade, a great visual for you all. I think it'll really make a big difference because now you can visually see how your horse is running, where your horse is running in comparison. ETNJ11, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. So the next thing I want to talk about, and I think this is important, and you see a lot of people talk about fire in different ways, by distance, by class. I thought it'd be more valuable to combine those two pieces together. And thank you, Lucky. Appreciate it. And so right now we see, okay, in my Griffey, so you can see, instead of scrolling up and down, looking at different places, you can see in one single place how your fire is performing. So I got it in my Griffey, cool. But then I see, wow, in class 5, across these distances, I crushed it. And then in class 4, crushed it again. In class 3, okay, there's a little drop off there. In class 2, wow, big drop off. And in class 1, didn't really do much else besides these, but yeah, still a drop off, but still fairly high, 75%, 50%. And as we know from the chart we looked at earlier, that's usually a good indicator. So why is this fire graph, this fire chart important? Because now you can find consistency very clearly. Looking at this across classes, if you have a horse that races across multiple classes, you can very clearly see that at distances, for example, of 2,400, Gold War has done extremely well from a fire perspective in class 5, in class 4, in class 3, in class 2, and in class 1. And I think that's something that's important. If you look at fire, consistency of fire can be an indicator, if you're looking to evaluate or buy, of quality of horse. It's not the end all be all. It's not guaranteed. It's not this is the only way that this can happen. But I think it's a very interesting and important identifier. G7 Racing says, are you able to track what time of day has the most user traffic, aka peak hour? Yes, that is something I would be able to track and to look at. Solid for Life, and something that I may be adding in later. When I first built out my own personal version of Zetalytics in Google Data Studio, that was something that I tracked and that I looked at. Solid for Life says, when using the tool, MJ, sometimes I click on a cell number by accident. The graph changes. Is there a way to undo that? I usually just refresh the entire site. So yeah, if you click on something and it highlights and it's blue, click on it again to basically unclick it, and that should refresh it. Punch likes fire more than odds. Lucky says, I think my favorite part of the tool is the gate chart. Run in gate 1 so much. Ryman says gate 11. And yeah, and so I've kept these two so that if gate comes on and gate becomes a retroactive, you can now see what gates are you running at. And the amount of races that you're running at those gates. So here's the gate breakdown. This was previously higher. We moved that down, or I moved that down. And then here's your place distribution as well. So first, second. You can click on any one of these things. The chart will update for you. So yeah, huge Zetalytics update. A lot more interactive, a lot more data to take in, a lot more ways you can really look at your horse or horse you're potentially evaluating to buy to see how it's being run and how you can potentially run it better. So, kind of with that being said and that wrapping up, I definitely have some time set aside for horse evaluations if people have some horses that I'd like to look at, but we are getting close to the end of the hour, the top of the hour. Want to just give a quick shout out to, I don't think I have it pulled up, to Zed Gazette. We'll be doing a Twitter Spaces for those of you on Twitter. And Chris will be in there from Zed Run. So I think it'll be a really great conversation. Throwing this in chat. Don't have to leave. If you have questions about horses, I will be sticking around, but I also be joining this, tuning in. I think it'll be a really great conversation. So for those of you that are interested, definitely check it out. Lucky1988 says fatigue, question mark. What question do you have about fatigue? How can I help you with that? And then Bryce says, hi, please look at Little Eden. Can't find the consistent distance. Thanks in advance. So let's take a look at Little Eden. Yeah, yes, Chris Ebling. Ebling? Sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing that. All right, so we have Little Eden paid up, or pulled up. We have 215 races. So when I use this tool, I see, thank you, Zed Retro. When I see a lot of races, the first thing I'm going to do is switch this to paid to kind of filter out to see, are there many free races that could be influencing or affecting my decision making? Doesn't look like it. We went from 215 to 214, so awesome. It looks like mostly racing class 4, class 5, so average of 481. So using my tool, I'm going to start at the right. I see distance guide 21, basically 17, and there's a drop off to 9, 6, and then another drop off to 2. So maybe I'd start looking at a lot of 2s in here. I'd start looking at maybe these top 4. Just distance guide is telling me. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the best distances or great distances. But let's see what we got here. So decent amount of races in these first 4. Okay, fire rates aren't super high. Average odds, you're right around 10, 11. Average fee, so you're running at low fee, good. So I don't see you're potentially mismanaging it from a fee standpoint. I do see some profitability here in some of these distances, so that's a good sign, especially when you have a lot of races. So now I'm going to look at the win percent in the breakdowns of the distribution of breakdowns of finishes. So right now I see at 1600, for example, you have a 12-9 win rate. You're finishing first through third 35% of the time. 4 through 8, 22% of the time. And 9 through 12, basically 42% of the time. You're running it a little slower than Zed, and your standard deviation is pretty spot on. And now just looking at that, that kind of makes sense. This seems like this horse can perform well. This horse can win. But it's also a little bottom heavy in that it has a pretty strong 9 through 12 finish. That being said, you are profitable with this horse at this distance. I would maybe start there. What I love is that 4 through 8 isn't super high. Another potential place to look would be at 1,000. It's a similar class rating. So, okay, so I know we're not going to lose too much there. Fire is higher. Average odds are better. It's profitable. 16.67 win rate. Almost a 39% first through third. A super low 4 through 8 at 16.67%. And a 44.44 9 through 12. Again, bottom heavy but more balanced. You're still running it a little slower, but your standard deviation is wider. So let's look at, just out of curiosity, Rodney, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Let's look at 1,000 and let's look at 1,600. So see 1,000 speed, yeah, you are running it slower. It does confirm that, but you also have a super, super fast time here. And not many races at 18. So I think this is what's saying like, hey, here's your potential right around in here. And then at 1,600, you're pretty thick throughout, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Pretty dense throughout. Better word than thick. But and that would kind of explain your distributions here at 33, 22, and 41. But you're still profitable. So I think there's some potential there. Just looking at this alone, I don't necessarily love 2,000 or 2,200 because it doesn't look like, yeah, you've got a fast time there and a faster time there, but it doesn't look like consistently you're running very well there. 2,200, 13, 26, 20, but a 53%, so that's significantly higher. and barely not profitable. And 2000, yeah, not profitable, 7 win rate, 21%, which is still a good number, first through third, but really, really high 9 through 12. So this feels to me, and just looking at the overall distribution, is a really bottom-heavy racer. And that's going to hurt things a little bit, but you do still have some distances that you're profitable. I would continue to explore those. It is 8 o'clock. Zed Gazette will be starting. I'll stick around here if you have any other questions, but definitely go check him out. I think it'll be a great conversation. How long until it refills? Do free races use more or less, etc.? I don't think free races might use more or less. I don't know. I've only been able to enter free races lucky. We pulled this up earlier. I'm tracking fatigue, looking at horse, the race, the rate at which it recovers per hour. We don't have anything solid on that yet that I'm aware of, but I will be providing this to you guys. Nothing about how once it hits a certain mark, you really see a big performance degradation. I will get there, just not there yet. Usually it's within a rolling 24-hour period is what I'm seeing in one example of a 7% refill. I'm just checking up on chat. Little Eden we did. Should I wait, race my Griffin, or do you go for it? I have 2 science experiment crossbreeds to test out. Your choice, G7, your choice. Do it how you want. If you got a Griffey, I'll throw it in. We'll watch it together, but absolutely your choice. Naruto in the house, what is up? Sometimes you gotta let him go. All right, thanks, MJ, much appreciated. No problem, AT hi-hat. Horse seems lazy. Any other horses we are looking at to analyze? Perfectly Pierce says, is recovery linear? I don't think so. Because I recovered, I got to about 98%, I want to say, with Gold War. About 13 hours in, you can check my tweets. And then that last 2% took a very long time to fill up. So it could be that part of it recovers really fast, part of it doesn't. It's a very, very small sample size. I definitely want to gather more data before saying anything definitive. Alani 2. Alani 2. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Well, I can't find my own tool. Perfectly pierced. So the way you can see your fatigue rating is if you go to your horse's page within Zrun, you right-click on the fatigue bar, and then you inspect element, and you can eventually find it. There will be something that will show you like the number tied to that element within the page. So Lani 2 starting right, 19 drop off at 9, then 5, 5, and a big drop off. So again, we're looking at maybe 4 races up top, 4 distances to start. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll only be there. Seeing some pretty high fire across these. Not too many races at the other ones. Average fee. Okay, so I know this average fee right here. Class 4, mostly Class 5 is a little higher, but you are profitable. 12, 12, so I like a high win rate, but you got a great first through win through show. So I'm seeing with 2,000, 2,200, you have a very heavy finish in 4 through 8, which I don't necessarily love. I think that 2,400, you're profitable. You've got a good amount of races there. Pretty good fire. 7.5 win, which isn't great, but you're coming in first through third a lot. So you're coming second and third a lot. 4 through 8 isn't super high, 35 comparatively, and 9 through 12 is really low. Potential down button would be right here at 1,000 if you're trying to balance classes, because your average points per race is -2. I'm just gonna pull this up quick, see if the space has started. Maybe we'll throw this in chat.
No, I think we. Yeah, no, you're quite evasive. So when it comes to, I think we got plenty of stuff on your end of
Definitely
the
check
spectrum.
this out. No other horses for the night. I think we will close out.
Tail flick showing up in the
And
now.
thank you, everyone. Appreciate you all. Happy racing. Good luck. Flames aren't everything. Be careful of fatigue. I'm not sure ZG is on Twitch, but his Twitter is right here. And I will see you Sunday for the Zed News Network Inside Zed. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.